Good afternoon. We are going to go ahead and get started this afternoon, and we're going to take up first of all Senate Resolution 114. Senator Balfour is not with us at this point, but was going to try to get here if he could. We're going to go ahead and do that with Representative Clark, and if you want to come and share with us just briefly what Senate Resolution 114 does, and I think we have someone here from the Department of Transportation and Gwinnett College as well if we need to hear from them.
Mr. Chairman, I guess this is on. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen and ladies of this committee. I bring for your consideration, this is Senate Resolution 114, and this has to do with property that will be given to Georgia Gwinnett College from the Department of Transportation. The large cost of this property transfer will be $1. And so it's the former Ford dealership. It's Arrington Blunt, located on Georgia Highway 316. It's west of Collins Hill Road, and it's close to the college, right across 316. The Blunt property was acquired by the Georgia DOT in 2010 for right-of-way, and it was used for, this property was going to be used for reconstruction. A bridge is going over 316 at that point. And Georgia Gwinnett College early on indicated the need and the desire for this piece of property, and it would be so adjacent to them, and it's landlocked. There's nothing else that can be done with them. Its ultimate use will be for technology, and it'll be digital media labs, teaching space, office space, meeting areas, and areas for students. So the students, faculty, and staff will also have a pedestrian access to this piece of property. The title of the property will be transferred. Again, the cost is $1, and it will be from the Georgia Board of Regents, and it will be to them as long as they use it for public use. And I bring this for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative. Any members of the committee have questions for the Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question that I have is, how large a parcel is this?
The area, I can give you that information right here. Mary, you may know off the bat, but I have it right here. 7.7 acres.
Thank you.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Any other members? Representative Green?
Let me make sure that this is going to be deeded to Gwinnett College.
Yes, sir.
Not the Board of Regents.
Correct. The board. It'll go to the Board of Regents.
It will go to the board. That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
that it would go to the Board of Regents, and then they will, in turn, allow them to go ahead. Okay, that's all I need.
Hmm. Any other questions, members of the committee? Transportation and Gwinnett, do y'all have anything you want to add, or y'all just here in case we need you? We appreciate you coming for that. Representative Buckner?
I move that we do pass Senate Resolution 114 by substitute. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, we're passing it just as it came to us, I believe.
Okay.
That was a Senate committee
All right,
substitute,
so
but it's coming
Senate substitute
just as it came
114.
to us. LC 342919S. Do pass. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Congratulations, Representative Clark.
And congratulations to Georgia Gwinnett College. Thank you so much for your consideration of this matter.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming today in case we needed you. Appreciate that. My counterpart in the Senate, Chairman Carter. We're going to begin today, if you'll come. I think we've got 3 or 4 items that you have brought our way.
I have, Mr. Chairman. If it's okay, could I request that Frank Smith from the State Properties Commission?
I think that's a very wise request.
Yes, I do too. Which one do you want first?
Let's do Senate Bill 37. No, let's do Senate Resolution 114 or 103 first. Senate Resolution 103.
Senate Resolution 103. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable members of this honorable committee, what an honor it is for me to be before you. I am simply delighted to be back amongst my friends.
Okay, laying it on pretty heavy for us, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring before you today Senate Resolution 103, which is our annual easement resolution that we do every year. I believe there are 12 counties that are impacted by this. All of the senators and representatives, all of the senators and representatives that are impacted that represent these counties that these easements are going to be in have been contacted and appraised of this situation. So, again, it's just the annual update that we have to do and that the Properties Commission has requested us to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a synopsis that's being passed out to us, and I think that the way I handled conveyance was about this point, Mr. Chairman, step aside and let Mr. Smith come up. And
I would take that as wise advice, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for coming.
You'll see in front of you what the synopsis is telling us here, that in 12 counties there's 16 easements running through various pieces of state property. What these are electric power lines, water lines, road safety improvements, natural gas lines, and driveways. In every instance where an easement runs through state property, we charge the fair market value. So we'll have it appraised. So Georgia Power is running a power line through state property. We'll have that appraised, and then we'll charge Georgia Power the fair market value for that easement. Where the power line is actually serving the state, coming to a state building, we will have a nominal consideration for that. And that is throughout here, and I can go through these individually if you like. There is only, from what I said there is only one change, and that is the last page of your synopsis in Baldwin County. And what is contemplated here in Baldwin County is the Department of Behavioral Health is right now in the utility business. They are a water provider to Central State Hospital. They are in discussions with the city of Milledgeville to take over the water system. And what's being contemplated is that the city of Milledgeville will purchase the water system, and they'll have easements that run throughout all of the property. So that's what this is.
Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Reese can't be here because a family member is sick, but she's very much concerned and aware that there's a potential transfer of property from the mental health hospital in Rome.
Yes, ma'am.
At some point. This is in no way able to be amended with that because it's just power company easements. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
right now, this does not contemplate that. House Resolution 95, which is crossed over, is going to be contemplated in the Senate, which Northwest Regional, which is what you're talking about, is contemplated in that piece of legislation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay. We're going to move on at this point because I think we have a committee substitute.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that may be in my office, and we're going to check and see. We don't have that in the folder, so we're going to check and see if we can locate that committee substitute. So we're going to come back to that resolution in just a moment. If the chairman wants to look at Senate Bill 37 with us, let's look at 37.
Do you want to do 37 first, Mr. Chairman, or 84, since it is the constitutional amendment? 37 is just enabling legislation.
Let's go ahead and look at 37 first.
37,
please.
okay,
Yes.
That's fine. Senate Bill 37, Mr. Chairman, is enabling legislation for the State Properties Commission to enter into multi-year leasing. It's important to know that this is a bill that will save the state money. It is estimated that over a 10-year period that we will save over $37 million in cost avoidance. Right now we are limited to being able to sign only a one-year lease because we cannot obligate one legislature another legislature to anything that we do. By allowing us to enter into multi-year leases, we will accomplish a number of things. First of all, we'll be able to get better rates, obviously. The longer lease you sign, the better.
Let me make sure the committee is aware of what we're doing. You are looking at LC 352033 as it passed the Senate, and that is what we're passing out right now. We have a substitute in our folder, and I'm wanting to make sure that all the committee members know that what we're looking at right now is the original Senate bill, LC 352033. That is what was just handed out to you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Again, the reason for this enabling legislation is that if we do have a constitutional amendment, if it does pass to allow us to enter into multi-year leases, then this will be the enabling legislation that will allow the State Properties Commission to enter into multi-year leases. It's also important to note, if we go through the bill, you'll see in Section 1 that what it does, and again, as you say, I'm reading from LC 352250S, and what it says in Section 1 is that, first of all, that the State Properties Commission can enter into a contract with a licensed broker. Go ahead, okay. And that through a competitive selection process that they will be able to perform transaction management services on behalf of the Commission. Okay? So it basically all this legislation does is just to describe the process by which the State Properties Commission will enter into multi-year leases. And it goes on in Section 2 to clarify the term that multi-year leases shall be no longer than 10 years, except in the case, I might mention, of a sale-leaseback. If we sell a piece of property and we lease it back, then we'll be allowing them to enter into a 20-year contract. But that's the only scenario where you would have that situation present itself. Moving on to Section 3, you'll see that it amends Paragraph D to clarify that the tenant agency may pay the State Properties Commission rental charges due to the landlord. Section 4, it goes on to say that, and this is a very important section, I might add, because this is going to call for an annual report that's going to go to the governor, the president of the Senate, and to the speaker that the State Properties Commission will submit to them that will detail the leases that they sign, that the obligations that they have made on behalf of the state. It will also bring forth all the revenues that are collected by the State Properties Commission from the previous fiscal year, as well as give it an itemized budget allocation for the upcoming fiscal year. Now, as I understand it, Mr. Chairman, there is a committee sub that you've offered, and let me say that you and I have worked on this with the State Properties Commission, and I've looked over the committee sub, and I very much appreciate those improvements that have been made to the bill. We're all for transparency. We want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on. I think that the new committee sub does just that, so I'll be in complete agreement with that and appreciate you bringing it.
Thank you very much. And let me first see if the members of the committee have any questions for you, and then we'll talk a little bit about the committee sub and get some explanation on a couple of the things that we're looking at in the committee sub. Representative Chokas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator, I don't know if I need to direct this to you or to Terry Long, Legislative Counsel. Does this need to be voted on by the people for us to do the multi-year leases? Did we accomplish that last year, or did that?
Let me share with you a posture where we are right now. There is a constitutional amendment that will have to be passed and will go before the voters of the state in order to allow multi-year leasing. This bill on its own does allow one thing, I believe, that, and Ms. Smith, would you like to address the one thing that this bill will allow us to do even without that constitutional amendment having been passed, and that'll give you a better feel for where we are with the amendment versus the bill.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing without the constitutional amendment that we'll be allowed to do is enter into an agreement with a broker. Section 1, correct. So that if the state needs to sell some property, say in Milledgeville, my staff of 11 can hire a broker now and do that on our behalf. That's Section 1 is the only thing that would do anything without the constitutional amendment.
Other than Section 1, there is the rest of this bill is enabling legislation that is accompanied by a constitutional amendment that we'll be looking at in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Is that a good explanation, Ms. Long? Any other questions for the chairman or for Mr. Smith? Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the reasoning that was used for the 10-year, not to the cap of 10 years, and then the other 20-year cap?
Well, 10 years was when we did a search of what is the average amount of time that a state agency stays in place. Right now we have the perceived flexibility that we can move out every year, year after year. Well, we went back and looked, and on average we stay 10.7 years in a single location because moving costs are expensive. And so we said on average we stay 10 years. 10 years is a good number. We started out at 20. 20 seemed too burdensome, too long. You can't look, your horizon for what you can see in the future is a little bit too long. And 10 seemed like a good cap. Now, keep in mind, 10 is just a maximum. We would think we would do a lot of 5-year leases because that's a much more comfortable look right there. But when you get into these large properties, water labs, things like that that are very expensive, if you can, do that over a 10-year period, you're spreading your costs out. So it's a much more financially feasible deal over a 10-year period for an expensive facility than a smaller facility.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank, over the years, you and I have had conversations about a lot of things in this committee. There's always one thing that I've always tried to look out for the state, and that is the money that flows into the general funds.
Yes, sir.
Why would you need to retain, as an agency, these funds?
Well, sir, there's two things I'll answer that with. One is that we're just trying to become self-sufficient. We're a burden on the Georgia Building Authority, and we're trying to become self-sufficient based on our own operations. I'll also mention that transparency is a big part of what the amendment does. The amendment requires us to provide the Speaker, Lieutenant Governor, and Governor a detailed report. The report will show every dime that we collect in the previous year, so that if the Appropriations Committee wants to take that money, they can. If they feel we're doing a good job and allow us to continue, they can. And it'll also tell us in the next fiscal year how every dime of that's going to be spent. Very detailed, from salaries to regular operating expenses to travel. And I will tell you that can only be used for our operations. It cannot be used for anything else than the State Properties Commission operations, which last year our operating budget was about $1.2 million. So that's M with a million, not billion. So again, our entire operation, I've got 11 people that work for me, and we're just trying to do things a little more efficiently like the public sector.
Mr. Chairman, just one or two other questions and I'll be through. The appropriation process, I'm a great believer that we as the General Assembly are the individuals who appropriate what is to be spent in the state, and that's a duty and a responsibility that I believe in very strongly. The other thing that concerns me, and you and I have talked about the same thing through the years, is the role that you as individuals play in regard to the amounts here. Does this mean that we're going to grow government with you? Are you going to expand here? You're going to need some more people to help you to expand the role that you're now taking on?
No, sir. I wouldn't contemplate hiring any.
You're not going to create another authority here.
No, sir. No, sir. It's very specific in how we can use those funds. Those funds can be used only for the operations of the commission. So, and you still have the appropriations process still has the authority to go in and take that money if they wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Jurgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that same vein, at the appropriate time, I would like to offer an amendment to the bill to essentially put more eyes on this report, and specifically on line 69 in section 4, where the report is to be distributed to the governor, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. I think it would be appropriate that that report also, in statute, be required to be given to the House Appropriations Chairman, as well as the Chairman of the House and Senate State Institutions and Properties Committees. As we're looking through that budget process, I think that more eyes is better. And we've been talking a lot about the zero-based budgeting process, and I think that it would be necessary to do that. So I can go ahead and give that specifically where you enter it now, or I can do that after a motion, if a motion is made.
Let's hold off on that. You have a comment to that, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, if you want to comment on the amendment.
Just thank you, and I think that's a great idea, but I would ask that you add also the Senate Appropriations Chair.
I made a note of that as we were talking.
Just want to make sure.
Representative Jurgensen, you have a follow-up?
No, sir, that's all I have.
Okay, we'll come back to your amendment in just a couple of minutes, Representative. Representative Kidd.
In that same line of questions is I don't think this committee or any other committee probably thinks that every department that generates income should keep that income for themselves, invest that income themselves, and spend that income themselves. A brief bit of history: a number of years ago, the Student Finance Authority got all the money from the federal government in one check, and they got all their money from the state in one check. It didn't come out quarterly. And so the Student Finance Authority had 3 full-time people who did nothing but invest the state's money and the federal money that the Student Finance Authority got. They gave no report to the state on the investment of those funds. They spent it how they wanted to. They bought a printing system and computer systems and all this kind of stuff, and never gave the state a report. When we brought that to the attention of the legislature, obviously they changed that system around somewhat. And I don't know if you plan to earn interest on the money that you're going to be investing, that you're going to be raising, where if it was in the coffers of the state would be drawing interest on it somewhere. And I think it's bad precedence for us to get into to let each department that generates income keep that income for themselves and ultimately earn interest on it, or if they're not earning interest on it, the state's losing money. I think it's a bad precedence for us to get into. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments or questions from the members? No other comments or questions? Representative Jurgensen?
Do you want to entertain a motion for the pass and then the amendment?
Let's offer up the amendment.
Okay.
And
Happy to do that.
no, we have not. The sub is what we're looking at. We're looking at the sub. We've not adopted anything yet.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer an amendment to the substitute LC 352250S. And on line 69, after the word Senate, that we would strike the and. After the word representatives, we put a comma. And then the following text: the House of Representatives Appropriations Chairman, comma, the State Senate Appropriations Chairman, comma, the House of Representatives State Institutions and Properties Chairman, comma, and the State Senate, State Institutions and Properties Chairman, comma.
as long as you get that. Okay.
That's fine.
Representative Kidd.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman, that we strike in the appropriate places, which might be the report also, the language that permits them to keep this money for themselves. I think that would have to go in 2 or 3 different places, but the general idea is there. That the monies would be generated to the treasury of the state and not kept by the department.
Maybe. Yeah. Let's see what happens here. Ms. Long, I'm going to let you look at that and see where all changes will need to be made just for a second. And Mr. Smith, if you would help us see how the commission, if this passes, this bill passes as the sub is before us right now, help us see your processes in leasing, negotiating leasing, collecting rent, handling that rent, the disbursement of it, the accounting that would be given to us, and including the opportunities that we've exercised in 11 amended and 12 budgets to go in and say we're going to take some of those funds away, and help us see how that works as this substitute before us is drafted.
Okay, I'll do my best. What would be contemplated is that there would be an advertisement for a broker. That would be a competitive advertisement. That broker would be selected based on his or her qualifications, and then we would enter into a negotiation to a negotiated fee, so that that broker would obviously earn a profit off of that transaction, and then also we would generate, is what we're talking about here, generate a portion of that fee to operate for the State Properties Commission. Then we would advertise for a minimum of 4 weeks each location where a lease is contemplated to go. We would advertise that for 4 weeks. We would entertain bids from landlords. Whichever landlord offered the best location that met all of our requirements, that's where we would look to go to move the state agency. And then as far as reporting requirements, as the chairman had mentioned, annually we would provide any and all information that this committee or either body or governor's office requested of monies generated and monies where those monies would be spent. And we'd be clear that those monies would only be able to use for operations of the commission and not for purchasing of any property or anything like that.
In your opinion, does if we pass it as it is, does that take away the appropriation powers of the General Assembly in relation to y'all's budget? In my opinion, in which the House body has done, they have the ability to take the money from as it resides in our budget. Last year there was $3 million put in the building authority's budget to demolish archives. Plans have since changed, and this body took that money and is using it elsewhere. I see the exact same process. If there is any money that this body or the body across the hall deems appropriate, they can have it, certainly. Representative Jurgensen.
When a property that's owned by the state is sold today, what's the process without using a broker?
Sure. It is advertised, and this is actually by statute. It's advertised in a local paper for a minimum of 4 weeks. It's advertised on our website, and then we do our best to hit the people that we think may be interested. And again, with a staff of 11 and properties in all 159 counties, do we market as well as a broker could, and do we get to all of the interested parties? We could probably do better, but we advertise and market to the best of our ability.
What would be the cost to the state in commission fees that we're not having to pay now? And what I mean by that is, what would you project the cost in commissions paid out for the property disposed? For example, in 2010, what was the estimated value of property sold in the state? And then what do you think a reasonable commission would be that the state would have to pay on those properties?
That would be tough to answer up here. I'm not sure. I can get that information, though, for you.
Currently, when property is sold, Mr. Smith, the funds from that property goes to
Treasury.
The Treasury at this
Yes,
point.
sir. And we would still contemplate all of the money from the property sale going to the Treasury. The only money that's being shared, if you will, is the commission from the broker.
Leases currently go to the Treasury. Lease payments.
Yes, sir. If we are the lessor, all of the lease payments go to the Treasury.
Members of the committee, any more questions or comments? Representative Chokus.
I'm concerned about this section that Rusty brought up, and I'm just not sure that if we pass this out the way it is, that we're not opening ourselves up to other agencies and departments doing the same thing. And I'm concerned that we're setting a precedent. I just wanted to make that comment. And we may want to consider this this aspect of that. I'm strongly in favor of multi-year leases. Being in the real estate development business, I know that will help. But I'm a little bit concerned about maintaining the reserve funds. I just don't want to create a precedent that we may be having to tackle this same issue in other departments and agencies of the state.
Anyone else? Want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to be heard. We do have several concerns that have been expressed as we're moving in this process. It was my hope today that we would be in a position to pass this bill out, and we may still be able to do that with a couple of amendments. And if the committee would like to try to do that, I'm willing to make a couple of amendments. I don't want to get to amending on the fly. I want to be careful about that. But if you think that we could make one or two amendments and move forward, I'd be willing to do that, or I'd be willing to do a study committee or a subcommittee rather to look at it over the next couple of days and try to come back with another bill and try to have a substitute that's a little bit cleaner.
I would think if my motion were passed, that Mr. Jurgensen's would be out of order. Or part of it would anyway. You still would be making a report to everybody.
I don't think it would be out of order. I think that I think the report would be different, but changing who the report goes to, I don't think would be out of order. It would just be a different type of report as we move forward. Representative Green.
Mr. Chairman, out of an abundance of caution here, and I know that Mr. Smith and others and the Senator have worked very hard to get this kind of worked out, I would ask that the two members of the committee here withdraw their amendments, and that for a couple of days that we look at it in a subcommittee and try to just resolve any issues, because there are some good points in here, but we need to look at each one of those. And we've got another year on this, really, as far as the constitutional amendment. And I just want to make sure that we have it right, and I don't want to see all your work go down the drain.
I want to see us not leave this meeting with the thoughts that we've got another year. I want to see us do everything we can to try to get this moving this year, even though the constitutional enabling legislation, certainly waiting another year is not an issue. But I would love to see us move this so that that we can begin contracting with some real estate brokers. And as a real estate person myself, having owned a company and understanding the importance of marketing in your location, I know that when we have property in hundreds of miles away from Atlanta that we're trying to market, with a limited staff to do that marketing, it makes it very difficult to market effectively when someone locally could do a much better job. So I don't want to just make the decision that there's no need to try to move on this this year. I'd like for us to try to get something to where we can have a bill that we can agree on this week and still see this move this session. Representative Jurgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After looking this over a little bit more, I think Representative Kidds, if that's the will of the committee, that amendment would be appropriate of striking on line 19 two words and retain on line 19. It would read, the commission may charge a negotiated fee. And I would agree with you that it's important that we go forward with multi-year leases. So I'd like maybe if the author of the First Amendment, if we go ahead and maybe take a vote on that amendment and then possibly offer my amendment, I think I would be comfortable with the bill at that point.
I'm going to put the bill in a subcommittee. Representative Green, Representative Jurgensen, and Representative Kidd. And the reason I'm going to do that is I also have just received a message that we need to make one more change as well. And rather than making 2 or 3 amendments, but here's what I want you to do: is a subcommittee. I want you to meet. I want you to meet tomorrow, if at all possible, Mr. Chairman. We'll work with your schedule as much as possible, see if we can meet tomorrow. I would not be opposed if you all wanted to huddle up after this meeting and spend a little time with it. And I want to see us get something. I want to see us get something done this week on this bill. Okay. Thank you all. Let's look at Senate Resolution 84. I'm sorry, we have the House substitute to 103. Let's go ahead and knock this one out. House substitute to 103. And Mr. Smith, you were beginning to tell us a little bit about the small change to the House with the House substitute.
Yes, sir. This is, as I mentioned before, this is the annual easement legislation, and these easements are in 12 different counties and 16 easements, most of which, or all of which, are either electric power line, a water line, a road safety improvement, a natural gas line, or a driveway. In all instances, when this easement runs through state property, we appraise it and charge the fair market value to that company, such as Georgia Power. In the instance when it actually serves a building, serves a correctional facility, or serves a juvenile justice facility, then we charge a nominal consideration because it's actually serving state property and benefiting a state facility. And in all of the instances in here, with the exception of one, that is exactly what's contemplated. The only one that is different in here is the first, Section 1, where it talks about Baldwin County. And what's contemplated here is that Department of Behavioral Health would like to get out of the water utility business. And the city of Milledgeville is interested. So what this would do is this would authorize easements everywhere where there is a water line on Central State campus. And we would actually convey the water system to the city of Milledgeville for them to operate and maintain and provide water to the campus in Central State.
Members, any questions for Mr. Smith before we move on to Senate Resolution 103? I'd entertain a motion this time. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second to LC 189857S, the House Committee on State Institution Property substitute to SR 103. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. It is passed. Let's look at Senate Resolution 84, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Resolution 84 is a constitutional amendment that would allow the State Properties Commission as well as the Board of Regents to enter into multi-year leases. I think it's important, and I would encourage the members of the committee and respectfully that we look at this very closely. You know, we are in tough economic times, as you all are aware. We're making cuts everywhere. Well, this is an opportunity for us to save money without making cuts. You all understand, particularly those of you who are involved in land management and property management, that being your profession, that the longer lease you can sign, the better rate you get, the better the facilities will be, because a leaseholder can go out and borrow money to make improvements to the facility, and we all understand that. There's another advantage that multi-year leasing has that I think is very important to us as legislators, and that is it offers transparency. We can actually compare our rental rates better when we are having long-term leases than we can when we have to just sign a one-year lease. So there are a lot of advantages to this. Again, the cost avoidance over a 10-year period is estimated at anywhere from $37 to $40 million, and that's significant, particularly in these economic times, and really should be significant any time.
Members of the committee, we have questions for the chairman on Senate Resolution 84. Not ready for a motion yet. Representative, I'll call on you when we are. Representative Jurgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that in this particular bill, resolution, that there are two entities mentioned in here. Can you give us a little clarification why both the State Properties Commission and the Board of Regents were included in this?
Thank you, Representative Jurgensen. The State Properties Commission is in there because the Properties Commission, on behalf of every other state agency, would enter into rental agreements. So again, juvenile justice, corrections, GBI, they would all come through and all are under our purview. The Board of Regents is not. The Board of Regents owns property and does property transactions on their own. So since they are not subject to our code section, that is why both entities are contemplated.
May I further?
Sure.
I know we had a bill that was on the Board of Regents' behalf that we're not going to hear today, but on this particular measure, I think it would be appropriate for us to hear from the Board of Regents of why they wanted to be included in this particular measure.
Amanda, you want to address that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Amanda Seals with the Board of Regents. In years past, we've been working with the State Properties Commission to get this legislation. I think both agencies have wanted the ability to enter into multi-year leases. And we did not draft this constitutional amendment, but we are included in it, and I believe the one that went through last year had us included in it as well. We do have enabling legislation that is before your committee. But due to some late substitution language, we need more time to study it. And we respectfully ask that you keep us in the constitutional amendment as this moves forward. It makes sense to have one constitutional amendment on the ballot versus two that basically say the same thing for different agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Buckner, and I'm not.
Can I?
Yeah. Go ahead, and then we'll turn to Representative Buckner.
I just I agree with Ms. Sills. I mean, you know, why have two separate resolutions? The reason we're including them is these are the two departments that can't do multi-year leasing now. And you know, if the regents were under state properties, and obviously we wouldn't have to include those. But I hope we don't lose focus of the fact that it will be a savings for the Board of Regents as well as for the State Properties Commission. So a savings is what we really want to accomplish here. And again, to have just one constitutional amendment as opposed to having them separately would make sense.
Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question comes on line 5, and I don't really know who to direct it to, but it's talking about in the event of termination of the agreement due to insufficient funds. I remember from conversations about this issue in years past that there was a great deal of conversation about what would happen in the event that there were insufficient funds and how that would be worked out within the multi-year contract. And I guess I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about that. And I mean, I know if you ain't got the money, you can't pay it. But I mean, we are tying the state to this agreement, and yet we're saying in a couple of lines up that the full amount of the obligation's not going to be appropriated in the first year. So how do we deal with that insufficient fund question?
I think that's a good question. That's something that we've discussed and that I've been bothered by as well, because you know we can still enter into multi-year leases, but if it's not appropriated, if the money's not appropriated in order to pay that lease the next year, then what good is it? So I've often wondered, you know, what if I'm a leaseholder, you know, what good is it going to do me if I'm still dependent on the state to appropriate the funds? Well, obviously it's the state, and we all understand that, but it's only going to have to be done one time, and I think we lose all credibility. I agree with you on that. The first time we miss it and don't appropriate it, then multi-year leases from the state is not going to mean anything. But I don't know how you avoid that. I don't know how you get around that.
Any other questions from the committee? No other questions? Representative Chokas, you have? Oh. Representative Jurgensen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a conversation with Representative Green earlier, and we were discussing this bill. And you know, since this bill goes hand in hand with 37, to make sure that we are compatible with both bills, I think it might be appropriate that we put this in subcommittee at the same, in conjunction with both bills being together, and then bring them out together so we can discuss them in a little bit more fully as we go forward later this week.
Let's do this. Let's put Senate Resolution 84 in that subcommittee as well, and let's add Representative Buckner to the subcommittee. We'll have the four of you look at Senate Bill 37 and Senate Resolution 84. We will bring them back next Tuesday when we meet at 3 o'clock. So make sure you all get something ready for us for next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Work hard on that, and let's see what we can do. Senate Bill 220, Regents has said that they need to work on that a little bit, so we're not going to hear that today. We have passed the other two resolutions, so that concludes the business of the committee for today. Thank you all, committee. I appreciate it very much. thank you, Mr. Chairman, for coming and spending
Thank
some
you.
time with us today. Appreciate you. Senator Chairman Balfour, thank you for coming by. We
I apologize that I missed the committee meeting earlier. I didn't want to disrespect the process. I was in the midst of looking at some house bills.
Chairman Balfour, as I told you yesterday when I came by, I know you're doing some hard work over there on House bills, and we appreciate that very much, and we're glad to be able to help you with such an important resolution for your college there. Have a great day. Thank you, Committee.